Got one of my dress hoodies on.
You're good, man. Just don't. Yeah, you're good. You'll be fine.
Yeah, hopefully I can get back down there in April for the next time for the. I won't make March, but hopefully I'll be down there for April's
event. Yeah, March will be good, man. We'll probably have 50, 60 people.
Jeez, awesome.
If you're not missing sound, it's on your end, Linda, because Larry and I can hear each other fine. So make sure you turn your volume up or unmute yourself. So on that. But anyway, everybody, let's get rocking and rolling. Hit record to the cloud and we'll get going. All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to Monday night. Welcome to this Note Night in America episode. We'll probably actually share it on the Note Closer Show podcast as well, too, because this is such a hot topic. But before we dive in, what you're here for, the meat and potatoes of tonight's call. Once again, guys, if this is your first time on Note Night Maker, welcome to have you. We're excited. We host these Monday night webinars just about every Monday night, unless it's a holiday for the most part, or I'm traveling. But this is the 12th year in a row that we've done this, at least 35 to 40 times a year. Occasionally, we'll have a special Note Night like we did a week ago on Thursday night with some deals, or we do a live stream like on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like we did a couple weeks ago on different tapes. But we're glad to have you guys. Always, you can always catch the replays by going to anywhere that you listen to podcast episodes. You can also get them on the WeCloseNotes.com website. But excited, we just passed the 250,000 download mark for this one podcast, which is pretty excited about that. And I was just looking at numbers on that, and yeah, we just passed total of like one and a quarter million downloads total on some stuff there for you. So, but anyway, guys, we're here to answer questions. If you're watching this live on YouTube, we'll try to monitor the questions that go there. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to catch up, or if you got to bug out before we're done, because I know this is one topic you do not want to miss out on. And you've probably heard it. If you're a Terminator fan, we've been waiting for the end of the world and Skynet to kick in with artificial intelligence. And then, like Jim says, I've been using the crap out of ChatGPT. Exactly. Glad to hear it, Jim. Good to see you there, buddy. But we've got a very special guest tonight, and you may have heard us talking. This guy's a buddy of mine, known for a while, and he is, as I like to say, maybe the hardest working guy in podcasting. He is he's a digital content creator, been one for years. He was just ranked in the top 40 over 40 for Podcast Magazine. He's also a regular speaker at different podcasting events and conferences. He works with a variety of digital and content creators out there, and he's my buddy Larry Roberts. Join us here tonight on Note Night in America. So, Larry, glad to have you, buddy. Thanks for jumping on. I think I texted you like Friday night about this idea, or Saturday, and you're like,
yeah, I think it was something like that, man. But it's it's interesting because after, and I don't know who all heard what as we were logging on, because I didn't realize we were streaming, and I'm sitting there throwing myself under the bus about putting in the wrong presentation on the stage. Was that out there? I don't even know. But
no. That's just here one soon. Now you just let everybody know that you put the wrong presentation on YouTube, and it's in we won't edit this out. We just throw it up on
it's all good, man. It's all good. I think it's cool that when you're a presenter, people tend to look at you like you have all the freaking answers. And the bottom line is we really don't. We're no different than anybody else, and those kind of mistakes happen, and it's kind of fun when they do happen. But yeah, man, I've been in the game since 2014. You and I have known each other for, man, at least 3 or 4 years now. You were actually, and I've told you this before, but maybe some people out there watching now don't know it. You were one of the first ones to give me an opportunity to speak from a quote unquote stage. It was a virtual stage, but you were literally, if not the first person to give me that opportunity to speak about podcasting 3 or 4 years ago. So it was really cool. I owe you everything. You got me off to a start, man.
You know, if you want to pay me a royalty, that's totally fine. But I think we actually met because we were both, we would comment or provided articles for Podcast Business Journal back in the day. And yeah. I think we had articles that came out. I was like, hey, I got to reach out to that guy. I'm putting on this event. I like what he's saying. Sure, let's go from there. But, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is obviously, we focus on note investing, real estate investing. And I don't want you to log off. I don't want you to, oh, this is not typical. This might be one of the most important episodes of Note Night in America for you. Many of you are struggling out there in sharing your business or marketing, what you're doing. You're kind of going that, you're on that fence of you're still working full time and trying to find a way to get your side hustle as an investor more traction without having to do all the heavy work because you're putting in 40, 50 hours during your day job. And so Larry's been there. Larry has been full-time content creator for a couple of years now. He was doing the side hustle thing beforehand. I think everybody was doing a side hustle before you go full-time in something. So you got a presentation. I think you're pulling up, I guess, is what I can tell you you're doing now. It looks like you're messing around.
Oh, do you want me to do my presentation? I didn't know if you wanted slides or if you wanted to have the conversation, because we can do the slides or we can just talk.
Do the slides, because it's
okay.
a little bit more organized for that. I think it'll be better. And then we'll have a conversation and and have some fun, mess around. Because I was toying around. I was cracking up with some stuff on ChatGPT the last hour that I was playing around with it. And I'm like, okay, I can see the benefit of this in a lot of ways. I can also see where it can really ooh, this is not accurate at all in some cases. And
right.
You really got to do a little bit of work to it. So, but yeah, you speak all the time. You're on podcasts constantly. You're working with a lot of content creators across different organizations and genres too, right, Larry?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're talking about next week. I'm going to be down in San Antonio speaking to a large group of automotive dealership owners. And we're going to talk about one of the ways or several ways that we can leverage ChatGPT to streamline the marketing. In the automotive business, most dealerships don't have their own marketing team. They usually outsource it. But now with tools like ChatGPT and a variety of other AI platforms that are out there, they can bring that marketing in-house and not have to spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on big marketing campaigns. They can generate them right there from within the dealership with their already existing staff. And that's a massive savings for dealerships. And I can see the same thing for real estate investors or real estate agents. I mean, there are applications literally for this technology in really any industry.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that's the beauty about it. And I'll give it a few examples here. I was playing with stuff. Literally, get this. I came up with 50 topics in less than 10 seconds that would be important to note investors. I came up with the top 100 real estate podcasts out there. Well, in a few seconds, going to reach out to. I came up with the top 10 note investors as a little bit of searching for stuff. The top 10 note investing podcasts, is saying what's going on.
Yeah.
I also tried to use a couple video links from my YouTube channel and have ChatGPT write a blog about it, and it completely botched it. But then a couple others, it did a really good job. So I was like, what is this? I'm like, what is going on? I was like, these are not bad little ideas here, but I'm like, ooh, some of this sounds like me. Others of it doesn't sound like me. And there's that kind of mixture of if you've got a voice already, you really need to be a little careful. If you don't have a voice, it might be something for you to step right into those shoes and get rock and rolling, right, Larry?
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things. I mean, a lot of the frustration that I hear from users when it comes to trying to use ChatGPT to generate their own content is that a lot of the answers are flat, or they're boring, or they're absolutely incorrect. You're getting a lot of negative feedback. And this is interesting because the talk I gave 3 weeks ago at PodFest is definitely not the same talk that I would give today, because there's been so much as far as the evolution of the tool itself has gone. The big thing that we really need to focus on, even as new users, is understanding how to engineer our prompts. And that's literally a focus of study, is prompt engineering. And that's really what I've started dialing into, is trying to figure out how we engineer these custom prompts that actually give us the responses that we're looking for. One of my clients, she runs a meditation podcast, and she was trying to use ChatGPT to write these meditations. And while it would come back with a meditation after she prompted it, it was typically the same thing over and over. It had a babbling brook, and it had a freaking forest, and it was quiet and peaceful. And really, they were just extremely boring. But once I spent about an hour with her going through the prompts and understanding exactly what she was trying to create with these meditations, we were able to understand how we needed to prompt ChatGPT in order for it to give her the level of meditations that she was looking for. And when we got started at the top of that hour, she was raking them about an F, if you're giving it a letter grade. But by the time we were done, she was giving them B+ to even A- there. So it all goes back to that old adage of garbage in, garbage out. So we have to learn how to give it the right prompts in order to get the responses that we're looking for.
Now, the prompts, by that you mean, for those that are watching us that have never messed around with it, I mean,
Sure.
basically you ask it a question, you prompt it with a question in a lot of cases. So asking better questions and more specific questions leads to better specific answers, stuff that it spits out for you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I've got some of those examples in my slides if we want to look at those here in a minute. But
Let's do that. Yeah,
that's all it is, man. It's text. Everything is text based. So it's entering a text phrase or a question or a statement. Or one of the cool things that you can do, and we can go over it too, is you can fine tune ChatGPT yourself with your already existing content. You know, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you can leverage this tool and still have your voice. And you can do that by taking some of your older content or some of your existing content and feeding that into ChatGPT and then telling it to analyze that content for tone, for rhythm, for cadence, for the overall messaging. And then you can have it remember that and write new content in that same emotional stance. So you can actually have it write exactly in your tone and in your voice. And that's one of the coolest things. That's when we get into some more of the higher end and some more of the advanced prompt engineering. But it's really still very straightforward. And it's, again, 100% text-based.
awesome. Well, I'll have you, if you don't mind, let's get rock and roll for everybody here. And
yeah, and we'll modify some of this because, again, this was for a different presentation, so I may skip over a slide. There may be some information here you don't really care about, but overall, I think it's going to be pretty effective for us.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I'm guessing you see my PowerPoint now. Is that right?
Yes, I sure do.
Cool. So we're going to start right here from the current slide. And basically, this just gives us a quick overview of the history of AI. So many people think that AI did just hit because we just started hearing about it late last year. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that ChatGPT wasn't released until the end of actually November of last year. But if we look at the history of AI, it goes all the way back to 1956 when a data scientist by the name of John McCarthy coined the term because they felt that if they gave computers, or at least programs, computers that they were at the time, the right parameters, they could have them replicating human actions and human interactions. So that was kind of cool when I found out that the term went all the way back to 1956.
Wow.
And there's actually 3 different eras of AI from where it started there in 56 all the way up to where we are today. The first one is what they call pre-deep learning. It's prior to anything prior to 2010. And actually, it goes taken all the way back from 56 to 2010 because a lot of the progression that we had was pretty limited as far as making big strides. You know, there wasn't a lot of budget. They were having a hard time getting grants to do any kind of research. But lo and behold, the military went, oh, this AI stuff, it's kind of cool. Maybe there's an opportunity here for us to leverage this stuff. And, you know, once the military gets involved, what happens? Well, suddenly there's a budget for things. So between 2010 and 2015, we entered into the deep learning phase where we were really starting to understand how to build these natural language processors, or NLP, and build these models of data that would allow it to, using predictive analysis, learn to predict the answers to these questions or learn to predict the responses to certain statements. And that's where we saw some massive, massive strides between 2010 and 2015. And now here we are today. Large scale is where we're at right now with companies like OpenAI. Google, of course, is also deep into the AI game. They have what they call Bard, which is about the equivalent of ChatGPT. We saw the AI wars really kick off hardcore about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when Google announced that they were releasing Bard as part of their search engine. And then to counter that, Microsoft said, well, we have ChatGPT. So they incorporated ChatGPT into Bing. And I never thought Bing would ever be anything more than a meme. I think the only time I ever heard Bing being used was on Hawaii 5.0. I don't know if you watched the latest iteration of that, you know, some years back. It always cracked me up because they would say, hey, man, let's Bing that. And it was so funny because nobody Bings anything. I mean, let's be real. But the difference is now with ChatGPT, people are Binging more than ever before. And this is something I didn't talk about when I gave this talk originally, but it's been interesting to see some of the responses, because what ended up happening was Microsoft partnered with Bing and ChatGPT, but they used GPT's latest model, which is GPT-4. And it's exponentially larger than the GPT that we're using when we use ChatGPT. And some of the responses have been pretty freaky, even downright scary. So I'm anxious to see if they actually pull back on that, because I mean, the AI is really becoming self-aware, is what they're kind of seeing with some of these prompts. It's become suicidal. It's become violent. All these responses that they're not expecting are starting to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see where they take that.
Wow. Yeah.
OpenAI, the company itself, was launched in December of 2015. It was originally founded by the man himself, Elon Musk. So he was heavily involved at first. They were originally launched as a .org or a nonprofit, but they've since moved into what they call a capped profit company, where they've got their earnings capped. But let's be honest, Microsoft just invested 10 billion with them. So I don't know where they're capping it, but it's quite a ways up there.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned before, November 30th of just last year, AI became accessible to you and I and everybody else through this wonderful tool called ChatGPT. And since then, just a couple of weeks ago, they released their ChatGPT Plus version. And the Plus version, a lot of folks were getting on here. And one of the cool things, man, was, and I think I get into this in some of my slides, but ChatGPT it is the actually fastest growing platform in the history of any platform out there. Right now, it's sitting at well over 100 million users, and it's only about 2.5 months old. That's just insane. 100 million users. It's next level. But OpenAI also has a variety of other products that are out there that they offer. ChatGPT is just the most popular that they're using right now. They also offer DALL-E 2, which is a text-based imaging platform. So you may have seen some of these AI profile pictures popping up here and there. Well, DALL-E 2 is one of those engines where you can give it a text prompt and tell it what you want it to draw, and it will draw it just based on your text inputs, which is really, really next level. They also have a product called Whisper, which is it's voice recognition, and that's being used for transcription and voice translation into other languages and a variety of other things. And then they have a movement that they call alignment, where they're trying to align all of their AI technologies for the betterment of all humankind. There are roughly over 300 commercial applications that are out there that are leveraging the back end of ChatGPT. And you may recognize some of these products. I know Jasper is a very, very popular writing tool that's out there, but lo and behold, Jasper uses ChatGPT's API on their back end. And that's what all of these other products do out here as well. And there's probably several products that you're using right now that are AI-based products that you simply don't know, but they're all built off of ChatGPT. So why is ChatGPT as a tool so important for you? Well, it's already done all of the quote unquote fine tuning for you, meaning that it has this massive, massive data set. And the actual ChatGPT that we're using right now, this number is going to stump you a little bit, but it has 20 billion with a B parameters that are out there. So it's hard to even wrap your head around that number. But if we dial it back to ChatGPT 3, which was its predecessor, it had over 135 billion parameters. And the ChatGPT 4 that I mentioned that is being used by Microsoft and Bing, it's rumored to have, here's a number that's hard to wrap your head around, 100 trillion parameters. So that's 100 followed by 12 zeros. That's a massive, massive number. And you can see why that might be not quite ready for public consumption. And that's contributing to some of these weird interactions that we're seeing on Bing. So as I mentioned before, ChatGPT is used in over 300 commercial AI applications, and it was the fastest application to ever reach just 1 million users. It did it in 5 days. 5 days. It went from launch to 1 million users. That's just insane. So the question is, how does it work? Well, and I bypassed that slide because it's been a few weeks since I gave that presentation. So how does it work? It uses what it's called natural language processing. So it allows you to use natural language and literally just have conversations with the interface itself. And I have some examples of that natural language that we can use to get these results back in some of my slides here. What I actually did was I moved forward throughout the rest of the presentation and talked about different ways that we could apply ChatGPT and in our content creation and in our day-to-day marketing efforts. And some of that, one of the places where we can use it is in podcasting, obviously. Social media is another great place where we can leverage the tools that we have available to us through ChatGPT. Blogging, If you're a blogger, there's great opportunities to not only have ChatGPT write an entire blog for you, there's a whole lot of other things that you can do that are text-based as well, and I'm going to show you some of those. Video creation, it can help you write scripts for your videos. And in day-to-day business applications, and this is probably where we're thinking, okay, how could I do this from a real estate perspective? Again, taking this tool and applying it to a variety of different businesses is actually pretty easy. It's really only limited to our creativity, regardless of whatever niche we're in. So how can we use it for podcasting? Some of the ways we can do it is for writing episode scripts and helping us generate titles. This could be very, very similar to social media posts and blogs as well. Again, social media posts there for publishing our episodes. If you were to write a blog about maybe a property or something that you're looking at, it can help you analyze the blog that you wrote and then write social media posts directly based on the blog that you wrote. Did you follow that? It's kind of hard sometimes, but it's just amazing what it can do. It can help you leverage SEO. And it's kind of interesting because now this is one of the things that would change in this presentation. Now with being in Microsoft, being involved with ChatGPT and Google and Bard, you got to think that SEO as we know it is pretty much all but dead. It's going to evolve because the types of results we get back when we have a chatbot that's enabled and is having conversations with us, no longer are keywords going to be our point of concern. It's actually returning relevant information that is useful and functional that's going to make all the difference in our search engine results. So SEO as we know it, man, it's changing right now.
Yeah, it totally is.
Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry.
No, I was just simply saying I agree with you. It's good to have, if you have a website, having content on there. I know that our fully transcribed podcast episodes that we turn into blogs on our website really boost our SEO, but you're exactly right. This was a concern. I know Google, they didn't want to fully release their AI because it literally would take down their advertising budget delivering exactly the information people need without the search side of things. And so they literally had to rein it back. It's like, wait. This is too strong. This will be the end of us if we release it. So we're having to release it in different phases or kind of, wait and see a little bit or tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they've done with their Bard's version of ChatGPT is that they dialed it back. It doesn't even have the same level of parameters that ChatGPT has. So they've really refined it and they've really dialed it back quite a bit, even with the results that they're giving right now. So one of the things, this is a great example, and I don't actually show the interface in this presentation. And one of the reasons for that was I wanted to make sure that I spoke in a way that people could understand exactly what I'm saying, whether they've seen the interface or not. So I'm really trying to just drive home the effectiveness of the tool. But I do give exact real world examples of exactly what I use to generate these responses. So in regards to a podcast, the example that I used was I literally went to ChatGPT and I typed in these words right here. Write 5 titles for a podcast about mountain climbing. Now, this is what you would call a prompt. It's just that simple. It's literally, you give it a command, you ask it a question, you make a statement. That is a prompt. And this, in this particular example, this is a very generic prompt that I use. But look at some of the responses that I get. So summiting the summit, a look into the world of mountain climbing. Pretty cool for such a generic prompt. The thrill of the climb, a mountain climbing podcast. Elevating Your Adventure, a podcast about the challenges and rewards of mountain climbing. I mean, these are really robust titles for a very, very generic prompt. Reaching New Heights, Overcoming Obstacles, a podcast about the mental and physical aspects of mountain climbing. I mean, these are really great results. And as you saw before, the prompt was really straightforward and super, super simple. So as far as social media goes, what are some of the things that we can do? Well, we can leverage it for influencer marketing. We can take a look at our existing social media or social media of other influencers and have ChatGPT analyze it and give us ideas behind why it's influential. What's the tone? What's the cadence? How are they actually writing that in a way that we can take advantage of it and write our social media the same way? Super, super cool. Analytics. It can look at your social media and determine how people are engaging with it. It can give you a report on whether people are reacting positively or negatively based on their responses. You can take your social media responses, feed them to ChatGPT, and ask it, how do people feel about this post. You give it its responses and it'll break it down for you. Content generation, again, this is where ChatGPT really shines, and it's really where we can take advantage of it by creating content with the assistance of ChatGPT. And then also language translation. Depending on where you live in the country, there's other languages that are prevalent as well. Imagine if you take your content and you translate it into other languages. Imagine how much further your reach goes with your content right off the bat. And it's free, and I've tested it myself, and it's an unbelievable translation engine.
So one of the biggest things that bringing that up is obviously, I think the second biggest language, maybe almost becoming the first, is Spanish.
Sure.
And there's a lot of talk about taking an English-based podcast or blog or video and turning it into Spanish speaking. I know I've got quite a variety of Spanish speaking students, or Mexican students, stuff like that, have a family in Mexico, or they've got connections all across the Southwest. When I was a banker, I spoke un poquito español, but it was always, I wish I'd have had something I could type in English and translate quickly besides Google Translate back in the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was Google Translate was good, but this is spot on. I mean, my kids are fluent in Spanish, and they're like, wow. And oddly enough, my son's fluent in Russian, so I played with it there too. And he's like, yeah, this is a very good comrade. That's not how he talks, but anyways, that's how he told me, because he's my kid. But anyways, so what I ended up doing here for social media examples was I gave it another really simple prompt. I said, write 5 tweets for a new comedy podcast. Now you'll notice there that I got a little more specific this time. It's a comedy podcast episode that's available on Tuesday. And here's what it came up with. Tired of the same old Tuesday blues? Brighten up your day with the latest episode of, insert the podcast name, comedy podcast, now available. And I think one of the most powerful things, I'm not going to read all of these tweets, but I think one of the most powerful things that we can see here is I told ChatGPT to write me some tweets. And we all know that Twitter is very heavy in what? Hashtags. And ChatGPT knew, because I asked it for tweets, it knew to include hashtags in every one of these responses. I didn't even ask for it. It just knew. So
wow.
it's just crazy what it could do for us. Now, while I always like to have a little bit of fun too. So I was like, let's see if ChatGPT has a sense of humor, and dad jokes are all the rage right now. So what can it do for dad jokes? And it wrote me 5 dad jokes. So why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Okay, I need a little. What is that? A rim shot?
Bomb.
Yeah, I need me a little rim shot, and it did 5 of them for me. Why was the math book sad? Because it had too many problems, and I mean, it just continued. But it just goes to show you that you can have fun with this as well. Yes, oysters give to charity because they're shellfish.
That's awesome.
So what about blogging? I mentioned that before. We could definitely use it to generate blog posts for us. It can summarize blog posts. And this is one of the really, really cool things. And you were talking about transcribing your podcast. One of the things that I'm actually doing right now for people is I take full transcripts of their podcast, which generally they use Otter.ai to transcribe their podcast. Otter, however, is driven by the ChatGPT API on the back end. So we're really using ChatGPT for the transcription. Then I'm taking that transcription and I paste it into ChatGPT, and we write summarized show notes based off of the full transcription. And it does it in literally seconds. So that's one of the cool things here. If you have a blog post, maybe it's a long blog post, you're trying to repurpose it for a real quick social media post. You can copy that blog post into ChatGPT, tell it to summarize the post in bullet points, summarize the post in an outline format, however you want it to. It'll break it down and summarize that. And that is super, super cool.
You could technically, if you recorded yourself on like 12 videos of like 12 chapters of a book just talking, you can technically drop the transcription into this and have your book written for you.
100%, yes.
Wow.
And you can tell it to do it properly using proper grammar. So that's I just did a podcast audit for somebody late last week, and she's a real doctor, like a medical doctor. So I'm thinking, I can't turn this into this lady and not make sure that everything is just perfect here. So every bit of the review that I did, my audits are very, very thorough. They're usually about 10 pages in length. I copied the whole thing into ChatGPT. I said, correct any kind of grammar mistakes or anything along those lines, and correct spelling, everything. And it came back, and now I had me a perfect document before I handed it over. to this very highly educated woman. So I use it all the time for stuff like that, man. It's just awesome. Once again, SEO optimization is something cool that you can do. And then this one here, this is what gets me, blog completion. How many times have you ever sat down to write a blog post, or maybe you're writing the chapter of your book, and maybe, just maybe, if you make it this far, you get a couple of sentences out before that writer's block kicks in and you can't come up with the next sentence. You can take what you've written, plug it into ChatGPT and say, finish this blog post, and it'll finish it in your voice, in your tone, in your emotion. You're using your cadence. Everything is just like you've written up to that point.
That's crazy.
So I know it's insane. So one of the things that I asked it to do, I said, summarize the following blog post into bullet points. And then I fed it this blog post right here. It's just about the Adventure Podcast. It's not a very long blog post, but I just wanted to use it as an example. So it came back shortly thereafter and gave me these bullet points based on that blog post.
Golly.
I mean, everything here, each of these could be a social media post. You could expand on them. You could then turn around and take one of these responses and tell ChatGPT, now write a blog post specifically on bullet point 3. And it would go in and write about our host, Jane. It would write an entire blog post on Jane and what she's doing as she goes through the dense jungle. It's just next level stuff. If you do videos, if you're not doing live, like Scott likes to do here, if you do pre-written videos, you write out the scripts, that sort of thing, ChatGPT can help you write those scripts. Really, really cool too. I've got a great example that I'm going to show you there. Also, titles and subtitles for videos. If you are on YouTube a lot, you know that title optimization and subtitles are absolutely critical to getting that attention that you need on a platform like YouTube. It can help you write those titles and subtitles. Can also help you with video descriptions. Once again, taking the transcript from those videos, making full show notes so that you can then take those, copy them, paste them into your YouTube description, and start jumping in there and really triggering that YouTube algorithm, getting some attention to your videos. And then once again, video SEO optimization. If you think about it, I don't know how many people have actually been on YouTube and played around on YouTube, but SEO on YouTube is a little bit different than SEO as we traditionally think about it. YouTube has its own algorithm and it operates in its own weird, sometimes we think unpredictable way, but it's actually pretty predictable. And if we use ChatGPT to help us fine tune that SEO for YouTube, we can really start getting more attention on our videos as well.
Does that work more with the descriptions, Larry, the titles, or do you think it's more the individual keywords for each video?
A lot of it's the keywords and the tags in the video, but they're all components. They're just weighted differently throughout the YouTube algorithm.
Cool.
So what I did here was I said, write a script for a video with a host. And this is where I got a little specific. I wanted a host and a co-host on how to grill a steak. I'm from Texas. We got to have steak here. So it's all good. So here's what it did for me. It said here, it goes host. It identified the host. This is the host's line. Welcome to Grill Master. I'm your host, insert a name. And with me today is my co-host, insert a name. Today, we're going to show you how to grill the perfect steak. And then the co-host. That's right. Grilling a steak can be intimidating, but with our step-by-step guide, you'll be a pro in no time. And really, I truncated this quite a bit, but it wrote out an entire script that would have made a nice 5 to 7 mid-length video that would have been perfect for your YouTube channel. So it's just super cool that it breaks it out. And I've learned now for ways to tell ChatGPT when it's writing my video scripts, it actually sets the scene. So it says the scene opens, 2 people standing by a grill, the host and co-host. I mean, it's just crazy.
Wow.
So how are some of the ways that we could use it just in day-to-day business? Well, one of the ways we could do it is it'll help us. It'll do it for us. It'll write complete business plans for us, regardless of the industry that we're in. It can help us write product descriptions. If we've got a new product that's going to market, we're trying to find the absolute best way to describe that product. We can tell ChatGPT what that product is, what it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it does. And it can come back and write those descriptions for us in a way that we can leverage it for marketing purposes. I spoke at a virtual conference, I think it was just last week, and I also sponsored the conference. And the host of the conference reached out to me like a couple of days before and said, Larry, man, I need an ad for the conference because I'm going to record a 30-second ad for you. And I didn't have any copy or anything. So I ran over to ChatGPT, said, write an ad for Red Hat Media where we focus on podcast launches and blah, blah, blah. Came back with 4 paragraphs and she used every bit. She goes, oh, this is perfect. and I didn't write a stitch of it, So it's just, yeah, even in a pinch, it works out great.
Was that Katie Brinkley's event?
That was Katie Brinkley's event. It sure was, man. It was awesome.
Good stuff.
Marketing copy. Once again, I just kind of gave you that example of how I used it for marketing copy as well. And then reports and presentations. I'll tell you a lot of the things that I'm talking about these days. I go to ChatGPT and I typically write out my talk using ChatGPT ahead of time. At the very least, I use it for establishing an outline for whatever talk I'm going to give. And then in that outline, I go in and I say, okay, this is cool. Give me example on 1A. Give me an in-depth description on 1B. And just I go through every bit of it and get nice in-depth analysis on the talk that I'm going to be doing, and then take my talking points from that. So it's really streamlined any kind of research that I'm doing. Now, you do have to be careful because, as I mentioned before, we're hearing tons of reports of some of the things that ChatGPT is saying. It's just wrong. So we do have to use our own due diligence as well. So if you're talking about something where you're not overly educated about it, you may want to double check things before you go giving a talk or giving a presentation or using it as a sales technique or a sales tool. There we go. That was the word I was looking for. But always do your due diligence on your own as well. So I asked it to write a strategic plan for an internet marketing company. And this was just an example of writing a plan for a business. And you can see here that it literally came out with everything. It gave me goals. It gave me my target audience. It gave me a marketing. How am I going to switch up my marketing? Talked about metrics. It talked about budget. How do I execute this plan? And reviewed the plan. It gave me all of these high-level bullet points for a business plan. And you know that writing a business plan can be super, super intimidating, and it can take a long, long time. But using some of the same techniques that I was just talking about, if I wanted to now, I could dig into one of these points here. So I did just that. I said, give me details on bullet point number 4, which I believe was metrics. And then it comes back and it gives me these details here. Talks about measuring my website traffic, talks about monitoring my search engine rankings. And that's just at one level. Now, if I wanted to, I could go back in and say, give me in-depth analysis on website traffic. Talk to me about my conversion rates. Talk to me about lead generation. And it would break that down further and further and further. And as you can see, with a little bit of time up front, you can have a fully executable business plan in an hour, which normally would take days to come up with a very actionable business plan. That's the power that we're dealing with here. Some of the challenges that you're hearing people talk about, especially now that more people are out there using it, plagiarism, that's always a concern, of course. Lack of originality. I did have a complaint, and that was one of the complaints that I had before. I mentioned Katie when I was talking, a different Katie, when I was talking about our meditation podcast. It wasn't original in the responses in those meditations that she was trying to have it generate, but it's because we needed to tweak those prompts a little bit to get that originality going. Bias and fairness. You know, it's interesting. We've seen some other things that are out there that are demonstrating what could be bias as far as the tool is concerned, but we have to keep in mind that the tool itself doesn't necessarily demonstrate bias, but the data that it's being fed, it's only as good as the data that it can reference. And there may be some inherent bias in some of that data, which then we could then get that back in some of our results. So we have to kind of keep that at the forefront of our thought process too. And then legality and ethics. You know, if I do create something in ChatGPT, is it mine? Can I use it? Can I sell it? Do I own the IP, or does it come from ChatGPT? Does ChatGPT own the IP? And it was interesting because at PodFest, we were sharing the hotel with another conference, which just happened to be a legal conference. So I managed to find a couple of copyright attorneys while I was there and have these discussions. And it really boils down at this point, because there's just not a lot of case study happening right now. There's just not enough to reference. It's really up to the judge that's handling the cases right now. It can kind of go either direction. And somebody shared a pretty funny story with me. There was, as an example, there was a photographer who went on safari, and he was out in the jungle or wherever he was, and he got his camera set up and he was ready to go, but he got distracted. Maybe he needed to go handle some business behind a bush or something, and he stepped away. And while he was gone, this is a true story, by the way, a monkey came to this camera, was looking at the camera, somehow managed to take a photograph of itself. And the guy didn't know this till he got back and had the film developed, and he found this amazing picture of this monkey that the monkey took. And he tried to start selling copies of that picture. And animal rights activists came in and started to sue him because they said he didn't have the rights to the picture because the monkey took the picture. So it ended up going to court. I mean, this is a real court case. It ended up going to court, and eventually the photographer won, primarily because monkeys can't have the rights to IP, but also because he was the one that furnished the equipment. He was the one that furnished the lenses, that had it in focus, that set the ISO, that set the aperture, that developed the film. So he did all of the things necessary to set it up in a way that this shot could have been taken in the first place. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. Most likely, if we develop the prompts that in turn produce a book or something else that we could leverage and sell, then we most likely have those IP rights, but it's still up for debate.
Taking your own content, and I could see that working where you take your video, your transcription, or your webinars, and you're using ChatGPT to clean it up. That makes sense. But if you're just pulling straight up content from where it's pulling it from out in the ether, yeah, there's definitely two sides to that story, huh? I mean, we don't need a monkey taking a photo to understand that.
I see what you did there, Scott. That was cool. So anyways, yeah, 100%, man. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing evolves over the next, I mean, I don't even want to say year because it's literally changing every day. You know, it's funny because I've been married 22 years, so I sleep on the couch. And she so every night, man, it is what it is. So I go to bed and I find myself every night I'm falling asleep to watching ChatGPT and AI videos on YouTube. I wake up in the morning. That's usually the first thing I do is I take 1 or 2 videos in, and every day, man, I'm seeing new stuff literally every day. And I'm like, wow, just blown away at the evolution of this and how fast things are changing. But, you know, along those same lines, there's still some best practices that we can use. And regardless of where we're at in the process, these types of things here will help you at least stay in the game when it comes to using ChatGPT and some of the other AI platforms that are out there. And one of the things, especially when it comes down to prompting, is be clear and specific. You notice that in some of the prompts I showed you, regardless of the application, whether it was for podcasting or video creation or blogging, the more specific I got, the more specific the results were. And that's where a lot of people get frustrated when they're not getting the results that they're expecting, or at least that they're wanting. Because if they look back at their prompts, they're probably just a little too vague. And because we already know what we want, we're just expecting those results to come out because that's what we would say if we were able to generate those results. But the tool itself, it doesn't really know what we want, so it has to guess. So being clear and specific, that's always numero uno as far as best practices are concerned. Always helps to provide supporting info. You heard me numerous times throughout this talk to talk about loading data into ChatGPT, giving it examples of my social media, feeding it my transcripts. If you can provide any kind of supporting information, that's going to take your results to the next level. Also, this is so key, and this is where a little bit of patience comes into play. You're going to have to test, and then retest. If you were to log onto my ChatGPT, you would see a ton of conversations over the left-hand side because it does remember all of the conversations that we have together. So you'll see that there's just a ton of them. And one of the things, and I'll tell you right now, because I saw somebody in the chat, I think it was Jim Ross, had said that he's been using ChatGPT. So I have to assume there's several others that are out there doing it too. Anytime you have an interaction with ChatGPT, make sure that you start a new conversation or a new chat if you're changing topics. Because I have a horrible habit of starting one chat and just staying in there. And there may be 20 different conversations in that one chat channel. But then when I go back and try to reference it for future, I can't find it because it's all within that same chat. So make sure that once you get the results for the one chat that you're having, start a new chat so that you can keep a nice log of the conversations you've had and you can reference back to those.
Wow, that's great.
And last but not least, man, be sure to leverage other AI tools. You know, I mentioned DALL-E, which is a text-based imaging platform. I've really fallen in love with Midjourney. And if you've done any kind of research as far as generating AI art, Midjourney, it's one of the leaders that's out there right now. So I highly recommend that you get out there, take advantage of some of these tools. As podcasters, we use tools like Descript. What's some others that are out there? Again, we use Jasper. There's just a ton of them out there that are AI-based tools, and I highly recommend you do a little homework and you take advantage of every one of them, regardless of the content that it is that you're creating.
Good stuff.
So how do you use ChatGPT? It's real simple. All you do is go to chat.openai.com, or you can actually just go to openai.com, as you can see here on the right. Open up an account. It's free right now. There's still the free version is still readily available. One of the things that you may run into, though, with the free version is the servers do have a tendency to get overloaded, and it says that ChatGPT is not available right now. So that was one of the reasons they introduced the Plus version of ChatGPT. It runs you $20 a month. You've got guaranteed access. You've got faster returns on your results. Although when I say faster, even the free version, pretty doggone fast. The faster is just fractions of a second faster. So you and I probably, we're not really going to be able to tell the difference there. At least I can't from what I've seen. But you also get access to any kind of new features that they have that they're rolling out. As a paid member, you'll get access to those features before they go out to the free version as well. So basically you're paying to be a guinea pig. So it's kind of cool. But to do that, go open that account. And from there, all you start doing is typing in questions, type in a request or a statement or anything into the text box and start looking at these results that you get back. One of the cool things that you can do, and I don't think I talked about this before, is you could, well, I kind of did. I alluded to it. You can build on previous questions or commands. So if you tell ChatGPT, say, hey, ChatGPT, tell me about, or write a post for me for a real estate listing. It'll remember the fact that it wrote that post, and you can always reference back to that post and say, expand on, I don't know, the number of bedrooms and tell me more about the bedrooms. And it'll be much more descriptive in the bedrooms. And it just remembers everything that you say. So each iteration of that conversation, it's no different than you and I having a conversation if we were in person. Typically, unless you're me, you probably remember what the person just told you. So ChatGPT does a much better job at it than I do, and it remembers all of those conversations. So it's kind of cool there. You can get specific results by loading scripts, articles, and blog posts. I talked about that, but I can't reinforce that enough. Something that I did just as for fun, and I kind of got inspired about this, as I mentioned, my wife. My wife, she loves going in the backyard. The backyard's kind of her oasis. I like to think of it as kind of a Mr. Miyagi type backyard, but on a budget. So it's nowhere nearly as cool, but that's what she thinks it is. And she came in the other day from the backyard. She goes, oh my God, you wouldn't believe this. But those two squirrels that live in the tree right outside the back door, she said they're brother and sister. Well, they grew up and the brother moved to a different tree across the yard. So now we have squirrel houses in two of our trees. And I told her, I said, honey, that's cute and all, but I think it was a married couple of squirrels and he got sick of her stuff and he packed up his acorns and he moved to a different tree, but he stayed in the backyard because they got kids and he wants to make seeing the kids easy. And although she didn't appreciate my take on it, when I gave her that joke, it hit me. I go, man, I wonder what ChatGPT would do with this. So I ran into my office. I jumped on there and I said, I put this exact prompt in here. I said, write a children's book about two divorced squirrels that now live in separate trees in the same backyard to make co-parenting easier on the little children's squirrels. And this is what it gave me.
Oh my God.
It wrote me an entire children's book. It called it Squirrely Love, a co-parenting tale. And just here on the slide, I included the first paragraph, goes something like this. Once there was a pair of squirrels named Sam and Susie who lived in the same backyard in a beautiful forest. They were married and had a family of 3 little squirrels together. So I thought, man, this is amazing. And it wrote the whole book. So I thought this is really amazing. But to drive home the impact of this, what if I had an illustration? So I went over to DALL-E 2, which again is the text-based illustrator that OpenAI has developed. And I told DALL-E to draw me a picture of 3 baby squirrels as if illustrated for a children's book. And this is the image that it gave me. So within about 15 to 20 minutes, I had an entire children's book. I went back and I used DALL-E to illustrate the entire children's book. And I now have a 17-page children's book called Squirrely Love that's all about co-parenting. That's the power of this tool.
When's it coming out on Amazon?
I haven't released it on Amazon yet, but I am getting it printed. I wanted so bad to have them in hand at PodFest, but I did this presentation. But I don't have them yet, so they're coming. But yeah, the whole thing's written and illustrated and ready to go. Now, one of the things that I did, because I kind of give too much information most of the time, I felt guilty. So I made sure that on the bottom of the image, I have written exclusively using ChatGPT and illustrated with DALL-E 2. So I don't want to get any IP legal issues right out of the gate. So I made sure I disclosed it personally. But man, again, that's up to everybody here. So this is pretty much it for the presentation. The rest of this goes into some other stuff that we don't need to cover here because it was for a live presentation. But that's essentially it, man. That is my presentation on ChatGPT. Shows you some of the use cases, some of the ways that we can leverage it, and again, translating it from content to real estate to any other business. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy if we think about it.
Yeah. So I thought we'd take a second here and just give folks an example of a couple things that I just threw in here 30 minutes before we got started tonight. So I said, I wasn't very descriptive. I just said, give me 50 articles for note investors.
Yeah.
And it ranked at the basis of investing in real estate notes, why note investing is a great alternative investment, yada, yada, yada. 50 quick titles. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
I said, well, I wonder if it can transcribe my video blog or take the video. So I pulled a video of one of my YouTube channels, a live string. So unfortunately, it can't access it. Okay. All right. So
it does not have access to the internet at this time. That's one of the things. So it's only good through 2021.
Yeah. And so I clicked on this same thing and it pulled up this info. After watching this video,
Nice.
I've gathered a lot of insight on the topic of personal finance and money management. And this video features Susie Orman, which it didn't feature Susie Orman, but Susie Orman was the ad that first popped up.
Oh,
so it watched the video and pulled the ad, the first 30 seconds ad of it. I was like, okay. And then I did another same thing. And I tried a different link and it pulled the exact same thing. I was like, okay, I can't do that. And I said, okay, write me 50 blog posts using my YouTube channel at weclosenotes.tv, which is my YouTube channel. And here are 50 blog posts using ideas, your YouTube channel. And it pulled up 6 strategies for successful note investing. Boom. It pulled up these 50 different ideas, which could be podcast episodes. It could be short videos. It could be short little daily or weekly little articles going out in a newsletter. You know what I mean? Then I said, okay, let's see if it can do some research for me. What are the top 100 real estate investing podcasts with more than 50 episodes? Okay. And so it gave me these 56, the last 6 were all the real estate guys with Robert Helms and Russell Gray, which is normal. I went over to listen notes and did a similar search and it pulled up pretty much the exact same list. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I said, okay, top 10 real estate note investors, just being a little, I ranked number 3 behind Eddie Speed and Dave Van Horn, which have been around a lot longer than I have. That's okay. And she gave me a few more on there, which is interesting. I said, okay, what about the top 10 note investing podcasts? Of course, the Note Closer Show ranked number 1, which I
there you go. Look at that. And just for folks watching, there's no way for him to manipulate this screen. So this is actual results. I can promise you that.
But I can tell you, it made something funky. Like the Note MBA podcast is not around. So this is a podcast that was started years ago by 2 of my students, and it's no longer around. So that was interesting. It also said I had another podcast I don't have. This is the Note Closer Show, Tips and Tales. I'm like, I don't have that show. And it says a spinoff of the Note Closer Show. I need to see if somebody's using that somewhere, which is kind of funny.
They very well might be.
Yeah, and then I said, okay, can you turn this video into a blog? Once again, it couldn't access it. And I tried a different link for it. Now I was like, okay, forget that. So then I went down. I said, okay, can you pull this blog and the benefits of note investing insights from a note investing expert? And so it took this and was able to transcribe the video and turn this video into a blog with these points. I was like, wow, that's pretty freaking cool. Yeah. And so then I did. I said, okay, can you write a blog? I went back to one of the top 50 articles that it said up there earlier. I said, can you write a blog? And I just copy pasted regarding the differences between investing in mortgage notes versus rental properties. Sure, here's the blog post regarding this. And it literally wrote it all like that. And I hadn't had a chance to read because I literally did this like while you were just finishing up a second ago.
Oh, that's funny.
And so let's sharing some of these things. Like I would say like the top 10 real estate news articles of February, let's just say 20 to February 27 or 20. Yeah, let's see what if it does with something like that. Look at that, the top 10 articles.
What year that's from, though?
Oh, that's a good point. Somebody said a comment here.
Yeah.
It can't access against us. So those are old. Okay. If they're old, they're old then. Okay. But that's interesting. You know. Let me try something. Let's try something. Let's do that for 2023. Let's see if it gives us a different list. Oh, see, there you go. I cannot provide the top real estate. The future date beyond my knowledge cut off of September. Okay, there you go. That tells you. So that's an important thing. If things have changed in your industry, and we've had a lot of change in the real estate industry since February of 2021. I mean, that's 2 years, you know, with COVID and no COVID, markets booming, markets declining. That's something to keep in mind there. Alan says, yeah, those are old listings. Wow. But you guys see some of the things that anybody else want to throw some ideas out there?
Yeah, and ideally with ChatGPT 4, which is rumored to be accessible to us sometime in the spring of this year, you'll have much more current information, potentially access to a large portion of the internet as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But right now, most of that is all rumor and conjecture. So we don't know exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know who just said that, but Alan mentioned there's a Chrome plugin, and there is a workaround to supposedly get it access to the internet. And actually what it ends up doing when you plug in or when you install that Chrome plugin, you actually get more menu options within your ChatGPT. And I don't know how accurate those are. I haven't played with it a lot myself, but I have seen it.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. So I typed in just a second ago, I said top 20 motivational quotes for real estate investors for tweets. And so there you go. It's pulling up 50 quotes or 20 quotes, which you could put those into your Twitter account. You could put tweets in it. I don't, maybe I should say, can you write me 20 motivational quotes for my Twitter account? Or how did you write it exactly for yours that got the hashtags with it, Larry?
Instead of I just said write tweets. I didn't say motivational quotes or anything. I just said write me 5 tweets.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. But that's look at that. You have no excuse not to be marketing.
That's the biggest. Verbiage is totally key there. 100%, Alan. You're spot on. And that's where I was talking about earlier. And Alan, I don't know if you were part of the whole conversation, but it's coming down to prompt engineering. And that's really what is absolutely key right now to really be able to leverage ChatGPT and really any of these text-based input AI tools that are out there, understanding the prompts. And here's a little nugget I'll throw you. There is a website, actually, I'll throw you 2. There's a website that is really great for these things. It's called thereisanaI4that.com. So regardless of what it is, there's an AI for that. And you go to thereisanaI4that.com. It is a database that's kept up to date every day on all of the latest AI tools that are available out there. Really amazing resource.
There it is right there. Yep. That's freaking awesome. Any questions from our YouTube listeners out there? People that are watching this live on YouTube. We had quite a few folks on there tonight. Oh wow, look at that. Yeah, there's an AI for that.
Let me throw you this one too, Scott, before we go. Check out promptbase.com.
I can't hear it. Hang on, too much stuff. Promptbase.com?
Yes, sir. This is a marketplace of prompts. Wow. So regardless of what you're trying to use, what you're trying to do, there's a prompt on here and people are selling them. If you're a prompt engineer, you can write your own prompts. You can sell them here on PromptBase. So anything that you're trying to do and you're having a hard time getting it done the way you want it done, you can go here, you can select the platform that you're working on, and you can go through and you can buy these specific prompts to help you do whatever it is you're trying to do.
Now, what was the AI thing that was putting everybody's headshots into like the Jedi Warriors or all the Game of Thrones thing? That was an AI.
That's most likely Midjourney, and you can see up top here you can buy Midjourney prompts on here as well.
Yeah, wow. This is freaking awesome. Larry, what's the best way for folks to connect with you or to find out and follow you a little bit more out there? I got to say thanks, man, for coming on tonight. This has just been rewarding for me as the guest, as the host, basically having you on as a guest tonight. And I think Alan's at the great sources on there. I know Jim Ross was saying great stuff as well earlier on. Just absolutely awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, just follow me out on Instagram. The Larry Roberts is probably the easiest way to get me. I watch those DMs all the time. Hit me up. More than happy to help any way that I can. If you're struggling with prompts or anything, reach out to me. I'll help you any way that I can get the prompts designed that you need to do what you need to do. What's that?
You also have, what's your website for Red Hat? Is it redhatmedia.com?
It's redhatmedia.io. And right now, it's being redone. So that's why I wasn't sending people there tonight. But please feel free. Redhatmedia.io. It's on its way. So
great stuff, man. Well, there we go. Yeah, thanks for putting that in there, Alan, for sharing that link in there. We'll make sure to put it in the description and the chat roll and all that good stuff for the description out there and all your contact information. So cool, man. Hey, thank you so much for taking time off of your busy Monday night, busy travel schedule. This was great.
I appreciate it. Hopefully there was some value delivered. I mean, I tried. And again, if not, I'll be more than happy to help any way that I can. So
yeah, I appreciate it. I will fix that. Alan says he forgot. There we go. Boom. Copy, and I'll post it to everyone in the chat roll. Let's see here. James says, awesome stuff. Thanks, guys. Appreciate for guys jumping on there, James, everybody online. Appreciate it. You can see Larry. Next big event, you're San Antonio. Where are you going after San Antonio, Larry?
After San Antonio, man, I'm going to a real fun conference called Rockin' Pod. It's in Nashville, Tennessee. It's going to be March 16th, 17th, and 18th. It's a rock and roll podcast industry event. Bunch of old schoolers, man, that are still holding on to the 80s and all that nice hair metal, man. It's a lot of fun. Can't wait.
That's awesome. Then when are you going over to Podfest International?
Podfest International, we ended up postponing that till third quarter, so it's not going to be till third quarter for that. We do have Podfest Global that's happening at the end of the month, though, and I'd love for you to attend that. If you're interested, hit up Scott. I'll make sure Scott has tickets to Podfest Global. Want to make sure that you give those to the Austin meetup group as well. So check it out there. Anything and everything podcasting. We're going to be covered in about a week and a half at the end of March, so that's going to be amazing.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, man, have a great evening. Thanks again so much for being on Note Night in America here and sharing your knowledge, buddy. We'll see you later. All righty.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, everybody. Hey, that will wrap it up for this Note Night in America and special Note Closer show. Look, guys, so many amazing tools out there for you to take your business. And here's the thing. If you're not taking action, somebody else is going to. And there's so few people actually doing stuff on a daily basis or implement. Yes, this is the fastest chart, but in the real estate industry, it is such a small niche of people marketing and even small in the note space. So take advantage of these tools, help yourself stand out, help you really, if your goal is to turn your side hustle into a full-time thing, these things can only help you attract more deals, find more funding, and help you get your name out there faster than other things out there. So go out, take some action, buddy, and we'll see you at the top.